What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and there's a lot of nonsense to sift through today. The garbage this time is extra heavy and delusional this time around. We got some really out of touch people in the games industry yet again proving why AAA gaming is falling apart at the seams. From a weird game CEO proudly stating that their game has no white male characters in it, a British broadcast corporation presenter advocating to purge any and all players they disagree with, and a Microsoft-led initiative that deliberately goes out of its way to demand uglier characters from not only the games industry but others as well. So, let's begin. I figure we start with the weirdly racist feminist CEO and what that whole story is about. From thatparkplace.com we have this article titled, Unleashed Games founder and CEO Irene Pereira brags about excluding white male characters from alpha build of upcoming game Haven. If you haven't heard of this developer or their game Haven, I don't blame you. I didn't even know they existed until they started spewing nonsense either. Apparently Haven is an upcoming family-friendly fantasy game. But then I got confused because there's already a game called Haven that came out a few years ago, but apparently this is a different Haven game. I don't know what to tell you, but if this game's existence already sounds confusing, just know that I'm right there with you. Irene Pereira is your typical feminist game developer. There's even this image of her standing in front of a whiteboard with the words non-toxic players being written as a must for their game studio's mission statement in an unironic way. Anyway, let's look at what this delusional dev is saying via Twitter. Just wait until they notice that none of our starting characters in our alpha build are white males. None out of 6. Incredible. Just breaking all the barriers there, Irene. You are a trendsetter, the likes of which this industry has never seen. 6 starting characters, and not a single one of them is a white male? This is unheard of. You should be given every award for this daring act. How could you be the first to think of not having a white male character in a leading role in your game? A first of her kind. I'm kidding, obviously, but it gets worse, so let's continue. Have at it. Again, I will say representation matters, and I don't know how many games have lacked female characters or created gameplay penalties for being a female character, or created vertex shading on white skin to represent people of color. The answer to your question, Irene, is actually 0. Like, I'm not even kidding. There has never been a game where playing a female character is actually worse than a male to my knowledge. For example, in Destiny 2, there's 3 playable classes, Titan, Warlock, and Hunter. And apparently, if you play as a Titan, it is actually detrimental to play as a male character model over a female one. The reason being is that the female Titan character model has a smaller hitbox than the male one. So if you're serious about competitive play in Destiny 2, for example, and you play a Titan, yeah, I guess you'd want to play a female character on purpose, in order to ensure that your chances of winning in that game's environment. And then there's games like Halo. Did you know that pretty much all pro players back in the day never played as elites? Because they had a bigger hitbox than those of Spartans, which is likely why in future releases, elites aren't featured as prominently when it comes to being playable characters. It might sound like I'm going off on a tangent, but the point here is that actually what Irene is trying to push here is just not true at all. And there's actually more penalties to playing a male character over a female one in such games and more. And I think the only game where it does benefit you to play a male over female would probably be GoldenEye 64. Cause Oddjob is a midget and can expertly run around rooms karate chopping his enemies' kneecaps. Like, I'm not kidding, on the official wiki for GoldenEye 64, even the editors admit that playing Oddjob is genuinely unfair, and it's considered cheating when other players have chosen much more normally proportioned characters in response. Then of course there's Jedi Master Yoda, who's playable in games like Star Wars Battlefront or that one time he was in a Soul Calibur game. And yet again, people complain nonstop that playing as Yoda was cheating in both regards. Cause it was a similar situation to Oddjob. You were playing this little gremlin of a guy, a real goober. And your lack of height and small frame made you much harder to hit than your enemies. Alright, I really am just going completely off topic now, aren't I? But I just wanted to really drive the point home here that what Irene is saying is just factually not true. If anything, in a competitive environment, you'll likely want to play a female character over a male one to ensure you don't get hit as often. Even Overwatch has this. I mean, look at Tracer's hitbox versus Reinhardt's. Sure, different combat roles and all that, but statistically speaking, Tracer is much harder to hit than even characters around her size, like a Hanzo or Genji. Anyway, Irena is completely wrong in this regard, and actually you'd benefit likely in almost every known circumstance to play the female character option. Or if the game has a small goober of a guy like Yoda or Oddjob, that's your ticket to victory, trust me. I still have Vietnam flashbacks of Oddjob running around corners to spin kick me in the kneecaps while I shoot blindly trying to shoot him. Irena finishes by saying representation matters, inclusivity is not the same as racism. Enjoy hating on me for today, I'll go back to making games. She tries to take the moral high ground, but she's already shown her hand, which proves that she's delusional and completely drunk on the Kool-Aid her and many devs also pride themselves when they want to be inclusive and whatnot. What's also hilarious, if you look at the company she's CEO of, which is called Unleashed Games, if you look at anyone in the higher up positions of that company, besides one Asian guy, every single other executive position is held by a white person, predominantly male as well, as you can see here. So Irena not only doesn't understand hitboxes correctly, but her own company doesn't practice what she preaches. Where's the diversity in your top executive roles, Irena? What are all these white men doing here? What are you, a bigot? A racist? Maybe both? Of course, to me, and anyone with a rational thinking brain between their ears, none of this stuff matters when it comes to video games. You could have a whole staff of odd-job-sized developers, it wouldn't matter to me either way. As long as your game is good, it runs well, and doesn't talk down to me, I couldn't care less who makes what game. But the moment you start to pull these shenanigans with me and others, well, that's how you end up in a video from yours truly. Irena also thought it would be good to share that she got her period during GDC. Yeah, that's a real thing she tweeted. So let's all uncomfortably sit together and read this. Don't make this weird, alright? And she said, "Two women sharing intimate stories about getting our periods in the GDC 24 merch store is the state of the game industry." Wow, so amazing, so brave and inspirational, Reina. You went to a conference in an air-conditioned place all by yourself, and your body did the biological things that it does automatically every month like usual? Just astounding. Everyone, please give a hand for Irena Pereira. The inspiration is off the charts. A period at the GDC 2024 merch store in this economy? I'm speechless. I'm going to take a knee like Colin, whatever his name is, who plays football. This is astounding. Of course, someone replied, "This is a parody, right?" To which the white savior, Irena Pereira, said herself in response, "Fully serious. It's nice to have other women in this industry, and to be vulnerable and real with them in a way that we can't be with the majority of devs. This GDC was the most female-powered of any of my past GDCs. I am 100% here for this." So she's championing the fact that she can talk about her normal bodily functions with other women who do the same thing, because this is a thing she can't do with the majority of the devs she works with. Again, Irena, you are the CEO of your little company that's making a game with 6 non-white male characters in it. Yet you then admit in your virtue signaling that the majority of the devs you hired for your company are men? Irena, what is this? How can you do this to me? I thought you were one of the good ones. You're over here talking about periods and how female characters have weaknesses to male ones in terms of game development, which is wrong in every conceivable way, and then you hire all men in your leadership role positions? And then you hire mostly men to work on your game too? I can't believe this. Irena, you've lost the very small amount of will I had for you a mere 2 minutes ago like this. And you're a white woman too. How dare you even exist in the year that is 2024? The reply after this is what we're all thinking, by the way, which just says this. Shouldn't the GDC be talking about, I don't know, gaming? Instead of periods and screaming at the sky? No, they shouldn't, because that doesn't matter anymore apparently. These devs don't care about good graphics, performance, or giving the players value for their hard-earned money. Isn't it enough that their games have no white male characters, pander exclusively at any moment imaginable, and use their platform for activism over escapism? But obviously I'm joking, and Irena is peak delusional game dev, and I think it's hilarious. She has this sort of tantric yoga instructor aura to how she tweets, like everything she says she convinces herself no one has ever done before her or something. She probably wakes up in the morning and unironically stares in the mirror for a full minute saying "you matter" over and over. And then of course she drinks her coffee black, cause milk and cream are white, and that would be racist of course, and we can't be having that. This weird white savior complex a lot of these devs have these days is getting out of hand, man. These are the kinds of people who will get mugged and stabbed and won't do anything. They'll just lie there dying and go, well, at least I wasn't racist. Irena's game, which is called Haven, but no, not that Haven game, another one, is probably gonna bomb. And I do think it's pathetic that her company, which according to her own words is predominantly employed with white men, is making a game that hates their very own existence. Either all the devs who work there just really need a job, or they too have the same liberal, infested, defeatist hive mind attitude. It's probably a combination of both, who are we kidding? And if you're seeing this, Arena, put some milk in your coffee next time. It's not gonna kill you. Then we have this next story, which is equally as tone-deaf and stupid, so I will of course continue to respond to their idiocy with my own. From Bounding Into Comics, we have this article titled, BBC gaming presenter Jules Hardy calls for current Sweet Baby Inc. discourse to end with a final purge of ideological opponents from the medium. Jules Hardy works for the BBC. No, not that BBC. This one is the British Broadcast Corporation. And she is calling for the games industry to purge anyone who doesn't agree with the collective ideology these weirdos all champion. It's a bold move on Jules' part, and also if you like staying employed within your industry, a rather stupid one to have as well. Dear Jules Hardy, I got a question for you. If you purge everyone who doesn't agree with your games or politics, who are you gonna sell your games to exactly? You're probably one of the many people in your industry who still thinks chasing the modern audience is a real and noble thing to do. Not realizing, as I've said aplenty in the past, that your magical alternative audience doesn't exist. And unless one of your game dev friends ends up finding a way to open the multiverse to a branch reality full of nothing but mental illness haircut they themselves, who would buy your game products, the likelihood of this happening is probably never gonna happen. Sorry to tell you, Jules and Irena and the other weirdos, but you're stuck with us. You can't reprogram our way of thinking. You're not going to force us into buying any of your garbage just because you say we have to. And you can call us all the names you want, that we're bigots or racist because we don't want to support your mental illness simulator games. But that's the beauty of the free market, which is that the market decides what keeps happening. It's like movies. There was an era of cowboy movies, then the market eventually went, well, we're over them, and then they moved on to other genres. These days it's superheroes, which is dwindling somewhat, and now video game adaptations have become the new craze. The point is that the industry's priorities are shifted based on what the consumers want, or at least that's what a healthy industry looks like. These days, the consumers want steak, and the industries are offering nothing but vegan soy-made chicken nuggets in response. And they're mad the audience isn't wanting what they're selling. It still amazes me to this day that we have multiple branches of industries. From games, movies, TVs, and more, just all genuinely going out of their way to give people the opposite of what they want a lot of the time. It's like what I talked about in my previous godforsaken video, the concept of forcing behaviors, because that's what this is all sounding like. Irena, Jules, and others, they don't care if you don't want what they're selling or pushing. That's not the point, because they feel like they're in such positions of power that they can eventually force the behavioral shifts that will make the consumer base, that's you by the way, become more accepting of these ideas and practices. But the problem is that we're not budging. In fact, with the rise of Gamergate 2 and the whole Steam list thing, yeah, that just seems like a metaphorical dragon that'll keep growing if anything else. Apparently, Jules Hardy said what they did because a user has created a Steam curator list for black girl gamers. It's a similar search tool used like the one Cabrutus made for Sweet Baby. Black girl gamers of course clapped back saying they don't work with Sweet Baby but they love what they do. And need I remind you, in terms of games black girl gamers worked on, you have Forspoken, where they made the most insufferable main character in recent history and then called it a win, which ended up tanking the reviews and killing the entire studio. So sure, the game crashed and burned and the entire studio got absorbed back into Square Enix, but look at that, a black leading character in a AAA game. Never mind the fact she's a terrible character who caters to stereotypes like her father abandoning her before birth. And she also survives by doing crime. Don't look at that, doesn't matter. All that matters is that she's a person of color in a leading role. Real win you got there, black girl gamers, and having Jules Hardy, who unironically a while back announced that they had new pronouns, is not the win you think it is. That's real, by the way. Jules said this via Twitter. So I've been doing some thinking these past few months and taking some time to reflect on things, and I have some personal news I'm happy to share with you all. I am non-binary. Also, no idea on pronouns yet. She, her, they, them is all fine. I have a lot of things to untangle still. I find it very interesting that many of these people who work in these sorts of presenter jobs seem to suspiciously announce they have new pronouns all of a sudden. Why is that? Could it be genuine? Of course not. Well, my cynical brain believes they just announce these things as political shields. In case any heat flies their way, if they get ousted for something or they get attacked, they can just pull the signal flare and yell, "Help me, I'm non-binary." And I mean, announcing you're non-binary is a good business move in your profession, cause let's be real, let's take one look at Jules and it's not looking good for her or them or whatever. Why, you may ask? Well, of course, they're a white person. And when it comes to hiring, you gotta adapt with the times. You think your resume saying she, her, and that's it is gonna be enough to get you hired over others? You have to evolve, like Goku discovering a new level of Super Saiyan these days. You have to throw as many pronouns as you can on that resume. Just drown your LinkedIn with them suckers. They, them, she, her, ze, zer, he, him, gigachad, whatever you can. You have to ensure your resume is so pandering that when your potential employer reads it, they'll have no choice but to hire you or fear of looking racist. And if you got any sort of marginalized ethnicity in you, even if it's like 0.5% Aboriginal, you better include that as well. Just anything you can to inch yourself closer to the finish line before the others do the same. You got knee problems? Not anymore. Don't you know you're now disabled, so you can add that to the list too. Your back hurts when you stand up? Maybe we can add a little paraplegic to that resume to really spice things up. And if nothing else works, just say you're trans, dye your hair, and then wear a shirt with communism symbology. Better yet, you could put the communist logo on your resume, that way you'll definitely get hired. As Jules says here, can we agree that for round 2 of this, it can be the final purge of these kinds of gamers? It's 2024. I've been arguing about this for decades. Can we all have a last full detox of these dudes so we can get back to the positive gaming community we have been creating? Interesting. So the toxicity in Jules Hardy's opinion is dudes, is it? So women aren't capable of being against these things? For someone who says they're non-binary, that's pretty bigoted of you, Jules, and you can't create a community, by the way. That sounds weird and artificial. You don't just make things like communities out of thin air. In a sense, communities are like farting. If you have to force them, they're probably gonna be shit anyways. It's sort of like my little community over here on YouTube and Twitter. I didn't force anyone to watch or subscribe and all of that. You think people would watch my videos if I was constantly holding a knife to them saying you better watch or else? That's a surefire way to ensure nobody ever supports you ever again. The reality is you can't artificially create communities, or if you do, you're definitely not going to have one that is long-lasting, that's for sure. These things have to be organic and form on their own. Look at the Soulsborne community. Those players have been thriving on stuff like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and all the Souls-likes because of their genuine love of those games. And that's awesome. I'm happy for all of them that they're a community that found something that they all love that brings them together. But you can't force something like the Soulsborne community to exist. They just formed when the things being made are genuine and good. What Jules Hardy is saying here, yet again, echoes the same sentiment. They are forcing behaviors. We have to purge the based players out of the picture so we can force a community that adheres to our principles and ideals. Don't know about you, but that doesn't sound very genuine to me. Melanie Mack then replied saying, you want to purge real gamers in favor of activists who can't hang in a multiplayer lobby without having a meltdown, or who can't navigate a single-player game without yellow paint, shiny ledges, and the character telling them what to do, to which Jules said, nah, I want to purge the hate and vitriol from gamers who refuse to allow gaming to evolve and adapt as we humans are doing. I have no problem with opposing viewpoints, but hate, violence, and aggressive behavior isn't okay in any realm you live within. Refuse to allow gaming to evolve, yet another way of saying they want to force the change that they want to see. Be it behavior or otherwise. None of this is genuine. You can't force things to evolve. That's not how evolution works. And saying you have no problem with opposing viewpoints only to then previously admit you want to purge anyone who doesn't agree with you doesn't make any sense at all. Just say what you really mean, Jules. You just want everyone who opposes you to be purged from the entire space. And all you really want is an echo chamber filled with people who think and act like you. That's all it really is. If you were okay with opposing viewpoints, you wouldn't say these things to begin with. You'd let it be and move on, but you didn't do that. If there's anything all of this Gamergate sweet baby stuff has done, it has made the mask of the industry fall off more than ever before. So much has happened in this 1 month since this all began, and I think it's just going to keep going. And Jules, Irena, and whoever else can attempt to force whatever behaviors they want and double down, but they don't control the industry, and they don't control what the players have to support either. We don't have to buy your games or support you in any way. No one is obligated to save you, and they'll realize this in due time once profits fall and their games don't do well. So go ahead, try to force whatever ideology and political agenda you have. We'll be there to wave as you fall off the cliff screaming. Finally, there was a story from Niche Gamer titled, Microsoft cautions developers to avoid curvy female characters. This all comes from a website Microsoft operates called Product Inclusion Action, or PIA, where the entire page just screams sweet baby-like policies. One part of their article says, are you reinforcing any negative gender stereotypes? Are you unnecessarily introducing gender and gender barriers into your code or design? Are you creating playable female characters that are equal in skill and ability to their male peers? Are your female characters equipped with clothing and armor that fits their tasks? Do they have exaggerated body proportions? When the story allows, do you show male characters who display a full range of emotions including joy, sadness, and vulnerability? The entire thing reads like a set of demands and rules that you must abide to or be thrown into the Shadow Realm. It's really weird. This entire webpage, as you're seeing on screen here as I scroll through it, just details various ways that Microsoft is ensuring that they force those behaviors like the other examples in the video have shown as well. This of course brought back Stellar Blade into the conversation, where these journos were mad that a beautiful character like Eve existed even though her body is just based on a real model who actually exists. All of this ultimately is designed to force your head into the sand and ensure you only get to come up for air if you agree to all of their demands. None of this is genuine, and none of it is going to work regardless of how bullish and headstrong they are. Like this one part in their mission statement that says what percentage of screen time, on-screen presence, speaking lines, heroes is held by different gender racial identities. Like, are you kidding me? How does this not just sound like something that just ends up getting made by committee? This is how you end up with piss poor products if everything you make has to adhere to all of these rules. There are so many guidelines, hoops, and demands here that by the time you actually get around to making your product and story work, you have enough chains to drown an entire project before it's even begun. So you have to have a character with a certain gender identity speak enough. Well, that's going to change the story now, but you also need X amount of people with these racial identities having equal screen time, so now you have to force their inclusion somehow as well. But you also need to ensure every character looks homogeneous, has no curves so you don't offend anyone, but also ensure you hit all the bases, so you might as well as give a character a mental illness haircut here or there while you're at it for good measure. None of this is genuine, and it's ridiculous, and yet they think you're too stupid to realize this and will just consume the sludge regardless. But I think you're smarter than that, and you know deep in your soul that there is something very wrong here. Whether it's racist kumbaya devs talking about period blood and no male characters, a recently gender identity changed game presenter asking to get rid of you and your hobby for simply existing, or the ongoing war against sexy female characters and the push for uglification, it's ridiculous. They hate us, and they are not afraid of showing it, and they'll push and push until you're so weak you can't help but accept their message. But you don't have to support them, remember that, and ultimately you have the power to resist them and watch them fall. So don't give in, always ask questions and stay vigilant. They think they're winning, but they don't realize all we have to do is point and laugh as their ideology burns. As always, thank you for watching, like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoyed it. Thanks to my patrons for their undying support, and have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves, go enjoy some gaming, and I'll see you in the next one.